Hello everyone. Today we're talking about an episode of Black Mirror that tackles grief, betrayal, and the downfall of a relationship. The technology of this episode allows users to turn Polaroid photographs into three-dimensional interactive spaces, exploring the memories contained within. It's co-written by Charlie Brooker and Ella Road. The latter's only other notable TV writing credit was writing this piece of Doctor Who episode a few years ago. With her writing alongside a writer who isn't a complete idiot though, this episode shaped up to be quite the impressive feat. Weirdly though, after my first watch of this episode, I wasn't that impressed, mostly because I found the main character Philip's descriptions of events to be quite a dull way of delivering the story. Of course, the whole point of this episode is that the memories can't be shown because he's blocked out the past physically and mentally. It's more akin to watching and listening to your grandfather talk about the good old days. Because the story is so emotionally charged and the rate at which information is delivered, it certainly had me more interested on my second watch. The other distracting aspect of this episode for me was being constantly reminded of an episode of the science fiction sitcom series Red Dwarf called Time Slides. The characters in said episode discover that old photographs magically start coming to life. These same photographs are interactive, even producing sound.
I'm in the photograph.
And you can only explore within the boundaries of the photograph until the screenwriters decided that this factor was too limiting for the story they wanted to tell. Both main characters start off fairly miserable at the start, and they were both in a band when they were younger too. This is where the intent of these two episodes deviate. Where Time Slides explores themes of determinism and time travel in a comically brilliant fashion, Eulogy is more interested in a slow burn drama about a guy who lived his whole life bitter about a breakup that happened over 30 years prior. All this talk of photography coming to life made me wonder if I could improve my photography skills. With the help of this video's sponsor Skillshare, I aim to do just that. You see, when I went around Asia, I was just taking quick snaps of literally everything I saw. I didn't realize how much thought and craft could go into taking a photograph until I started watching this class. Fundamentals of Photography by Hannah Argyle was really interesting, as I didn't take A-level photography or anything, and she's sharing her knowledge of image composition so that I can make my photos stand the test of time. Skillshare, you guys know it. It's a platform full of classes for creative people, made by creative people. If you're not interested in photography, there's a mountain of other creative classes you can dive headfirst into, like art and illustration, animation, music, and loads more. Skillshare is currently offering a 20% discount on their yearly subscription plan for those of you that click my link in the description. With this, you not only get a 7-day free trial, but a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive 20% off their first year of Skillshare. Get started today. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the review. Our main character Philip receives a phone call that his ex-girlfriend Carol has died. Instead of a traditional funeral, a company called Eulogy is making house calls to see if any friends and relatives want to contribute memories for an immersive funeral. Philip is initially reluctant to get involved, owing to reasons that the episode will have revealed by the end, part of what makes this episode so intriguing. What could have gone so badly wrong with these two that justifies his attitude? One thing about this main character is that he's kind of old. He'd rather trim roses in his garden than engage with technology, with the set design of his office reflecting this. We see old laptops stacked on top of each other as though he wants nothing to do with them. His extensive vinyl collection also shows his reluctance towards engaging with new technology, though he does say this later in the episode.
Well, I inherited my folks' house.
So he might not even have the passion for these old pieces of technology either. We then hear the guide disc start to talk. This is the voice of Carol's daughter, Kelly, that he obviously doesn't recognize.
You're Carol's daughter.
Yes. Well, kind of. I'm programmed with her thoughts and opinions, so I can decide what she'd like to include without her having to be exposed to everything herself.
Once again, generative AI plays a big role in this episode. It's interesting how seamless this representation is, almost as though the writers envisage humans having digital selves that don't even require direct input to present themselves in the future. Philip then retrieves a shoebox containing a set of photographs. This is initially a rather small selection, reflecting reflective of Philip's continual reluctance to contribute emotionally to the death of his ex-girlfriend. The memories sting, and it appears as though he didn't have anyone else in his life aside from Carol. He has been living a solitary existence ever since, where he'd sooner go on tending his garden than digging up old bones. Philip identifies the scene as the day they met. Despite the attraction in his younger self's eyes, Carol is seen wearing an engagement ring, prompting Philip to comment that she was somebody who didn't take commitments seriously. It was a shame that this little detail never really led to anything aside from developing Philip's perception of her. We also learn that Carol was somebody he admired for playing the cello and that she was funny. Things were going well until a certain point, a point that he doesn't want to relive owing to the negative emotions associated with it. Was it heartbreak? Was it betrayal? Was it anger? Is it a mix of all three? Again, all that intrigue is sustained throughout the episode, and the reserved nature of Philip keeps us guessing. As a side note, the special effects in this episode are simple and effective. The jagged lines where the computer had tried to complete missing details on faces, bodies, and objects is commendable and a little disturbing, compounded later by photographs that had Carol's face removed by tearing, scribbling, and pencil piercing. The photographs they experience give an eerie vibe. Even the use of frozen, long exposure smeared across the photo is a nice detail, adding to the peculiar sensation of motion whilst in a photograph. The evidence of the pair's relationship has Carol's face scribbled over or removed entirely. It's quite the startling moment seeing this collection, as you'd think he would have just thrown these away after all the years they'd been separated. It demonstrates Philip's inability to move on, as well as a lack of friends to encourage him to do so. There was simply nobody else for him except her. I think he was clinging to that hope that he could somehow, someday win her back. From here though, we start learning less about Carol and more about Philip, specifically how a selection of mistakes and attitudes made the pair grow apart. They were in a band where he neglected to integrate her true passion.
So Carol played keyboards,
Yeah, that was my idea.
not cello.
Cello wouldn't have fitted our sound.
He says this mockingly, as though it were a matter of pride worth defending, even though the band never led to any form of long-term success. A series of photos show Philip working at a bar with Carol being accosted by a guy dressed as Beetlejuice.
So who's Beetlejuice?
Just some dickbag trying his luck with my girlfriend.
He firstly still talks about Carol being his girlfriend in the present tense, as though he still denies that the pair ever broke up. Secondly, when the guide shows another photo of Carol dancing, he is disproven, showing that memories actually aren't that reliable when we're in emotional states. Even the way his colleague is seen holding his arm shows that he's not the saintly victim he claims to be. The evidence is fully stacked against him with this photograph of him on his birthday. He is pressed into a corner about his hypocrisy by Kelly, and it's a moment where Paul Giamatti's performance really shines. I mostly associate him with roles where he's yelling, but it was nice to see him playing a more reserved character yet still being emotion-laden and bitter. This comes to a full burst of emotion when the pair are at the dinner table. Just massive props to Giamatti's performance in this episode. With Philip speaking so much throughout the episode, this just shows that the audience will only have one side of the story without the guide. He is revealed as being quite self-centered, owing to him lacking any interest in his partner. Neither party is entirely at fault, as Carol didn't communicate to Philip at this fancy restaurant that she was pregnant. This was the real betrayal for him, but at the same time he was naive enough not to see something like this coming. They lived over 3,000 miles away during a time where instant free communication just wasn't a thing. He could have shown her a deeper level of commitment if he genuinely cared enough about her, but he didn't. That's where Philip is forced to realize that Carol lived out the rest of her life without him, and her daughter embodies that legacy. The reveal that the guide was Kelly was a twist I actually saw coming, but I appreciated the whole
You said skip the intro.
as it is common for people in the modern age to hastily skip a YouTube ad or not read the instructions before opening up a new piece of technology. Speaking of the modern age, the episode doesn't actually give us any dates for when the present day is set. The relationship took place between 1989 and 1992. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch to believe this episode takes place in the present day, just with the addition of the guide disc technology. The last hope of visualizing Carol is from a photograph that Philip took on a disposable camera. Reliving the breakup was one thing, but coming back to that pit of despair is another. It's revealed that she wrote a letter for him, which he somehow didn't acknowledge or maybe didn't want to open. Moments like this made me wish the episode had gone that extra step further and made the photos actually come to life. Then I realized that that would have been the easier option, and we wouldn't have these impressive visual flourishes to make this episode stand out when compared with the Time Slides episode of Red Dwarf I mentioned earlier. I think the most impressive part of this episode though is the ending. That shot of all the people sitting on the church pews zoning out to the memories provided by everyone who knew Carol was really impressive. It takes some serious imagination to conjure an image like that. Intercut with this haunting sight is the bright and beautiful memory of Carol, finally unlocked with Philip getting closure after decades of uncertainty, bitterness, and loneliness. The diegetic cello, played by Carol, becomes non-diegetic once the piece moves into a triplet of cellos. It's a simple piece, but we hear the second cello coming in as Philip steps out of the car. A few shots later, and we see Kelly playing the cello at the funeral. She's joining in with and expanding upon the piece of music that her mother originally wrote. The people in the crowd will now have access to that unfiltered memory, the memory he has at the height of their relationship. Anybody could have contributed a memory of her playing the cello, but it's her boundless smile and shy embarrassment of being watched and admired in that way that makes the memory uniquely Philip's. Assuming that Carol didn't experience love again, just like Philip did, this might be the most beautiful memory of her that anyone who knew her could provide. That's why Kelly nods to Philip as he walks inside the church. This isn't just mere recognition, this is a gesture of gratitude for making her mother be remembered forever.